Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Great Podcast. My name is Marcos Salazar.
And I'm Alexia Lucio.
We at the Great Podcast would like to thank everyone for watching. We appreciate everyone that views this podcast, and we hope to continue producing the best content for our viewers. Without further ado, let's continue.
Okay, so the topic for today's episode, we're going to have an open discussion on if Trump has really made America great again. We want to talk about the different aspects of his presidency, like the economy, the wall, his healthcare policies for this coming election.
Because we're always searching for diversity in our podcast, we have brought in several guests to discuss these topics with us. Our first one is Thanos Perez.
Hi, I'm Thanos Perez.
Thank you, Thanos, for joining us today. And our next guest is Isaac Steele.
Yo.
Oh, pleasure to have you here both. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Today, we will be discussing the different aspects of Donald Trump's presidency. The first thing we'll be looking at is the economy and has it improved. Now the discussion floor is open.
Okay, well, I'd like to touch on the fact that since his election, Donald Trump, we've seen the economy in America improve under Donald Trump. However, recently with the COVID-19 crisis, things have kind of spiraled.
I just feel like he responded to COVID so late. Like, he didn't take it that serious, and the economy kind of crumbled from that.
I don't think a lot of Americans took it very seriously because even whenever mask laws and things were starting to be imposed, not everybody was taking it seriously, or some people were radicalizing it and saying that it was stepping on their freedoms.
But that's Trump's fault because he tweeted that he wasn't wearing a mask. Like, you see him in pictures in public places at rallies not wearing masks. His supporters not wearing masks at his rallies.
Yeah, that comes with the party beliefs. I don't know. I mean, it's irresponsible for him to almost publicly endorse kind of not wearing the mask by doing it himself. Kind of not really setting the best example, but.
And then he gets COVID, and suddenly I just feel like it's taken so seriously, and now like he wants to wear a mask.
Well,
I think if you look at it from an economic standpoint, it makes sense for him to have taken the approach that he did, because it seems like he wanted to keep people from being scared. And as history's shown, when people are scared, they hold on to their money, they don't use it, and whenever money's not flowing through the economy, then we have drops. So from that standpoint, it makes sense for him to want to downplay it, but ultimately it's resulted in months longer than we were hoping or expecting for this to last, and I think it's backfired.
Oh, Marcos, this is like a good time for you to explain your trickle-down economy.
Haha, yes. So, as I discussed this whenever we were talking about the plan for the video, and I'd like to discuss the point that I think the reason the economy has failed is because Trump, or not failed, well, failed, but failed exponentially during the COVID-19 crisis, is because a trickle-down economy was not meant for this, and was ultimately meant to fail. Which we can see during the COVID-19 release crisis. Is there anyone who doesn't know what trickle down
could you please explain?
Yeah, please elaborate.
Oh, thank you. You guys made my day by saying that, honestly. So, the way that trickle down economics is supposed to work is that, let's say you start from the government. The government gives a big company such as Walmart, Apple, you name big companies, give them, let's say, $1 million. The way trickle-down economic is supposed to work is that money trickles down. It goes first to executives, stockbrokers, but then it keeps going down. So then you go to lower management until it eventually gets down to the minimum wage workers. But there's a flaw in trickle-down economics, because it's supposed to be going as a linear line straight from the top all the way to the bottom, which is, well, on paper, it sounds like a great way because everyone's getting that same amount of money. The issue is that it's not trickling down like that, and instead it's getting really kept up there at the top. It works as a really, really thin funnel with most of that water, all that money staying near at the top and flowing downwards. Now, whenever, as Thanos, you mentioned earlier, whenever people are in panic, they hold on to their money. So, what I'd like to say about that point is that they've already been holding on to their money, and with this, we can see how that's screwing over the economy during the COVID-19 relief crisis. And well, that's mostly it about trickle-down economics. Whew, I feel really smart for explaining all of that.
Okay, well, you see, what I've noticed is because we have such a free economy in the U.S., it leaves room for people to take advantage of systems like that, and that's when we should have backups like the relief fund that was being distributed to people. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good way to get money out of the hands of big government and into the hands of people, but we haven't seen any more of that since the initial one.
But do you guys think? But it's because Trump doesn't want to do that, because technically he's a businessman. Like,
you see,
those things are important to him.
with this trickle down economy, it's built for that 1% to hold on. It's built with that fatal flaw of that 1% being able to hold on to their money, and it's so obvious that he wouldn't want to because he is one of those 1%.
Trickle-down economics, it sounds like a great idea on paper, but so was communism. Communism sounds like a great idea on paper, but the issue that comes up with both of these systems is that there's a human factor involved. And when you get humans involved, there's all sorts of different stuff that comes in.
So that kind of prompts the question is, if Trump is reelected, will our economy continue to fall? But if Biden's elected, his policy states that he wants to tax that 1% a little heavier than the rest of like the common people. So would that make our economy rise?
Thanos! Is that Thanos?
Well, you see, I'm all for supporting taxing the rich. I think that we should all be putting our fair share into our government, and for those reasons, I think that Biden should be reelected, because Trump obviously it's without his best wishes in mind to tax the rich, himself being one of those 1%, or whatever.
Yeah, I don't believe he's really helped the American people as much as he claims during his speeches, his rallies. I think most of his intentions are to help that 1% class, especially with most of the bills that he's passed. If you look,
he claims that so heavily, though. Like, he definitely targets the colored community by like trying to persuade them to vote for him. Like, yesterday I was showing Marcos this like song he had a group of like singers make, like Mexican Latino singers make, about how they want to vote for Trump, and it's kind of like an advertisement.
it was very, viewers, if your viewers never look it up, it was torture. Please.
I'll send it to you, Marco, so you could clip it into this part of the podcast.
God, I hate editing.
It's something to listen to.
My only problem with Biden, because I personally, I don't feel represented by either of the presidential candidates or any of the other presidential candidates that are on the ballot. But my only problem with Biden is I feel like it wouldn't be Joe Biden as president. It would be the Democratic Party as president, and that they'd use him more as a scapegoat or a puppet, like a puppet head to pass laws that they want to pass.
Reading over his policies, though, I just have to side with him.
That's fair.
Because there's a lot of communities that have like gained rights and protection laws that would be taken away if Trump was reelected.
That's fair.
I think that's a fundamental issue, though. Like Isaac said, how he doesn't feel represented by either candidate. I think that's a fundamental issue with the two-party system that we're currently in.
Yeah, everybody gets radicalized to like either
If it was
radical
up
left
to-
or
radical
right,
left or
right.
radical right, where most people fall somewhere in the middle.
About 90%.
If it were up to me, I would get rid of the two-party system. I feel like it doesn't help because a lot of people will vote because they're encouraged to vote, obviously, because their vote matters.
Well, originally, I believe there was a name in Congress for like the whole of everybody there. It was the Democratic Republican Party, and then those two split up based on different beliefs on different topics, and eventually it became the Democratic and Republican parties.
If we didn't have the party system, people would really be forced to educate themselves
To learn
and-
what they're voting about
But
instead
then
of just
again,
siding
we'd
with whatever
also
side
be
they've
faced
chosen.
with I feel like we'd be faced with the problem of with so many options, it would be hard for
Normal people to kind of educate and then learn.
no, I
and then
think it would be
choose.
hard for us to get a majority, because if you look at something like Abraham Lincoln, where he won his presidency with 40% of the vote,
Yeah,
and even though that's a whole different thing, because I won't get into the Civil War. That's different times. But if you look at today, if a president won with 40% vote, that would be an outrage.
oh yeah, people would be really upset.
True, but we also have things like the Electoral College who have the ability to make or break the vote on certain circumstances, which I just think we should get rid of them too.
See, that makes it feel like the voters
Are insignificant.
like our vote doesn't count. And we've seen what happens whenever voters feel like their vote doesn't count. It ends up with huge populations not being represented.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Then you go into there's discrimination. Then it leads into a whole plethora of problems that can be seen.
When it comes to the Electoral College, though, I feel like it has to stay, maybe have its powers reduced, but it's part of that checks and balances kind of system that keeps Congress from getting so much power. Like if they lean super,
But do you guys really feel like checks and balances work?
there has to be some kind of checks and balances there. It doesn't work.
Mhm.
Like, for example, I remember there was a law that went through went through Congress, and then the president vetoed it. And then it went through Congress again, and it passed again. So then it went to the judicial branch, and they okayed it and passed his veto with a 2/3 vote in the Congress.
Mhm.
So that kind of checks and balances thing there still needs to be some semblance of it there, where everything just, and then we like fall into like a fascist government. It doesn't work
Mhm.
out.
Although this conversation has been getting interesting, I'd like to inform you that the time is up for discussion. So if there's anyone who'd like to make some ending points to close this off before we move on to the next, feel free.
If you're able to vote, you should vote, and if you're not registered to vote or pre-registered, you should also do that. Yeah.
Great message, Alexia. Moving on, Alexia, if you can take the floor.
Okay, sorry. So I wanted to talk about the wall. How do you guys feel about the wall? Has that actually happened? If it were to actually happen, would it have any benefits? And who's paying for it?
Okay, the who's paying for it is a big one for me. At the end of the day, you got to look at it from who wants the wall, and if I don't want the wall to be built, why should my taxpayer dollars be getting put towards its construction? I don't want to fund a system that I don't believe in.
That's true. Okay, but I would also like to bring up the point that Trump, when he first brought up the wall, he claimed that he was going to have Mexico pay for the whole wall, that nobody's taxpayer dollars would go to it. But it didn't happen. The wall isn't even near finished.
Would you like me to give you because I did some prior research to this, so would you like me to give you the current statistics of the wall from the official website? Yes, the wall itself has an official website.
Ugh.
So, it's wall. So the wall has. So let's get the Mexican American border. So the Mexican American border is 1954 miles. Sorry, that was a bit hard for me to say. And with the wall, in Trump's 4 years of presidency, he has only gotten 306 miles completed, with most of the new wall that's coming in, most of the new taxpayer money being spent on redos of the old wall, redesigns.
So
I feel as though that's something he built his platform on and got a lot of votes off of. But in the end, not a lot of people are willing to pay taxes or pay increased taxes in order to build a wall like that, because that's a massive project that takes more than 4 years, I would assume.
Yeah, and okay, the Republican Party, you got to look at the Republican Party. They don't believe in bigger government and being taxed so much and more regulation. So I don't see how that lines up with taking money and putting more rules in place toward
but
big government spending.
a majority of the Republican Party believes that immigrants just like steal all their jobs.
See, that's an issue that I find coming up a lot, is people say the majority of the Republican Party. Are you talking about the people in Congress, like the actual representatives, or the people who identify as Republicans?
The people who identify as Republican.
See, I feel like that's a misconstrued statement, because there are people that identify as Republican but have more liberally lined ideas. Like, personally, I lean more to being a Republican, but I don't. Most people land in the middle. Most people are like, iffy about it, and they don't really have strong opinions on it. Like, personally, I don't think that immigrants steal jobs. I feel like they help farmers. Huh?
Are you still?
No,
No, we're not.
we
We're just
disconnected.
doing
Oh,
mild
there she goes again. Yeah, everybody seems to assume that everybody is super left wing or super right wing. Like about 90% of the US population sits right in the middle on it, and they don't have super strong opinions either way.
Talking?
I believe that should be the way to go, because you should just take what will benefit you most. You take what you want from the right wing, you take what you want from the left wing, and you form your own opinion. The problem that I believe is with our political system is that it's such a radical system that people believe that you have to be, oh, I gotta be all the way Democrat, or oh, I gotta be all the way Republican, because that's what it's been promoted as, that you can't be one or the other in the mid, that you can't be in the middle with it, that you have to either be all the way Republican or all the way Democratic.
I feel like that's caused by the lack of diversity in a lot of presidential candidates. Like, I know that there's probably a lot of have you guys read the ballots?
No, I haven't actually looked at any.
Yeah, I've looked into them.
It's like 5 or 6 applicants, and I only knew Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Only 2 people I know on that ballot. You know why? Because the other ones weren't publicized. They weren't in media presence, but like they're still running. So I feel like that's kind of the problem, a problem caused by the people running themselves. They don't have as interesting platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's again the two-party system that we have. It's just if it's a feedback loop. We have these 2 parties that are so big, they're the only ones that get represented, and then of course that results in them being the ones that get elected, which results in more representation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like you said, it's a feedback loop. It's a genius feedback loop for whoever's like running for it, but for anyone else who's trying to get into that thing, they have to align themselves radically with a certain party if they even want to stand a chance of it.
And it means that some candidates, like in the previous election where we had Bernie and Hillary, Bernie didn't have an opportunity because the party chose someone else.
They chose Hillary as their head runner.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. So it's just a matter of
It's
Just
it's almost
ima-
like a gambling game. They're placing bets on who they think is going to win the election because I know a lot of people thought that Hillary was going to win the election. Even I thought Hillary was going to win the election until I saw the polls.
yeah. I thought she was gonna win, and then the
There,
fire attack.
it's just the problem of a lot of presidential candidates have some things that people want. Like I'm all for raising a little bit more tax on the top 1%, but like I'm not for, like, for example, I was kind of for Hillary in the previous election, but I wasn't for her idea that she was going to take away everything, even handguns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's just me personally.
Yeah, it's just a matter. Yeah, and and them saying all this stuff. It's just trying to promote radical thinking. It's like, oh well, okay. Even though like I'm with this party, I still have to align myself.
Yeah, there's these people with
Everything they're doing.
there's people with radical ideals that not everybody matches with.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people who are left in the middle and they don't really know who to vote for. So the moment they see something that they like, they settle for it and they vote for that person.
How do you guys feel about leftists?
It's interesting. It's an interesting culture.
Learned about it. It was odd.
It's an interesting culture.
Party culture. I don't know.
Well, there's left
Political.
culture, left
Stand-
Whatever you want to call it.
whole thing. They have a lot of things insinuating.
It's just it's an extreme ideology
Yeah.
though. At the end of the day, it's hard.
That's a me. Apologies about that.
You're chilling.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So
It's hard
that's
to align yourself with a side like that whenever it's so extreme.
That's for very few people. That's what I'm saying. Like there's like radical left wing, like leftists, and then there's like the super conservatives, you know? And those are the only two like publicized radical parties. Like
I'll bully a conservative. I'm sorry. They make no sense to me. No.
See, that's how a lot of people feel about left. That's how conservatives feel about left. It's like the really, and that they call each other fascists. It just goes back and forth, and it just doesn't make sense on either side. To me, that's my personal opinion.
And with that, Isaac, I'd like to close off this argument. Thank you all for sharing such good points. And now we're going to go to our final argument.
I want to talk about Trump's new policies, the ones that he prompted in that first debate where poor Biden, couldn't speak.
So, your thoughts?
My mom actually turned off the election in the middle of me watching, or the presidential debate in the middle of me watching it. So I didn't get to get that far. Could you do you have any of those policies written down? Do you think you could tell me them?
I'm sure I can probably find a list of it. List of promised policies. Yeah, so unlike you, I was forced to watch the debate by gunpoint.
Okay,
by my
I
teacher.
also watched it.
Not literally. Everyone.
I really do.
Like
I was really interested in the healthcare one where he claimed that Biden wanted to get rid of all private healthcare, and he wants to only have private healthcare. So he wants to get rid of free healthcare.
That was one of Bernie's ideas, was getting rid of privatized healthcare and trying to get a public healthcare system only.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of Bernie's ideas, I believe. So I don't know. He makes some interesting claims sometimes.
So I don't have private healthcare. I don't know about you guys.
I'm on Medi-Cal.
Yeah. Okay. Honest. Medi-Cal.
What do you think?
Well,
Yeah, I run a but publicized healthcare helps a lot of low-income people with.
Oh yeah, I'm all for private business, but I also believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I think there's some fundamental rights that we should have, and our
Healthcare.
safety and health are, I believe, is one of those.
That's what I'm saying. I'm all for a public healthcare system. The only thing I'm worried about is if they increase how much that covers. What does a public healthcare system cover? That would increase the tax rate. You know, that's the only thing I'm worried about. But that's just me.
Okay, so I also just learned that in other places they have everybody has completely free healthcare. Like you could go to the doctor whenever you want.
Oh, yeah,
Sweden,
places like
you know,
Canada, Britain, where
I
they
didn't
have
know
free healthcare,
Finland has a really good
cheaper
one.
healthcare even.
The only problem with some of those countries like Sweden and Finland is they're significantly smaller and have a significantly smaller world debt. Because what are we, 13 trillion in debt?
Oh.
Actually, I searched up that was another thing I came across during my interesting observations of Mr. Trump himself. So, apparently, we've grown by I'm not sure if these numbers are correct because I did this during a quick search and haven't gone too into it. But apparently 32 apparently during the even though Trump said that he would fix the economy within his 8 years of presidency, he inflated it by over a third and it's now 32 trillion.
That's interesting.
I must say that is impressive.
That is really impressive. Wow. I'll have to look into that. On my
Yeah,
own.
I have to do my own research on that because I'm impressed at how awful those statistics are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
most likely.
huge number.
It is a ridiculously huge. That's why I'm saying to anyone listening that do your own research for this stuff because this was through a quick search, didn't cross check it, but yes, those are the numbers I found.
We are currently at $23.3 trillion
That's
as of
better.
February.
Think,
So could have
think-
increased, not by much.
think about statistics for a second. Have you guys ever been like really hurting? Like, I really need to go to the doctor, and you it's a part of like, I don't want to say American culture, but it's almost like you get to pick and choose on whether, like, do I really need to go to the doctor? And you could be dying.
and she is cut off again.
There she goes.
But on that point,
She was making a good point though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
culture to kind of be like, shake it off.
Yeah.
I think
There's
it's
sometimes you're like, is it really worth going to the doctor, getting checked? And if I find out I got nothing, I just wasted how much money on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a part of like because I think it's a part of America.
Dying.
There's probably you've just came back.
Just came back and we were elaborating on what part of the point you heard. Could you cut out?
Oh, okay. So I was saying that it's crazy that you could literally be dying and we just pick and choose on whether if we really need to go to the doctor because it is just so much money. The average ambulance like trip, like when you call an ambulance, it's $2,000.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
No, yeah, I've talked about this before. If I break my arm skating, I'm not calling 911. I'm calling Uber.
Yeah, it's outrageous how high the rates for some of these services can be.
And I get it, like everybody's got to get paid, but like this is life or death.
And I do agree with private healthcare though in some aspects. I think that there should be a mix of both. I think, hey, if you have money to afford better care, you should be allowed to endeavor into that. But I believe that situations like where a poor family can't afford care for themselves, that should be when the government steps in and says, here is your fundamental right of life.
Like, I just want to point this out. Like, we have that free healthcare and we have the private healthcare, so we everybody knows it's not the same type of care you get if you had private healthcare. And I think that's like, I mean, life isn't fair, but that's a little bit unfair.
Yeah, I don't think that they should be the same care because I feel as though privatized healthcare should be something.
It should be something because if you're working with privatized healthcare, you've made a bit of cash in your life, and although I don't agree with the fact that it'll be different, I can accept that it'll be different.
If you're paying high premiums, then
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I would love to live in a utopia where we could all have perfect health care and, we can have our free cancer treatment, whatever. But that's not practical. But I can at least hope that, every citizen can go to the doctors and not be so scared that they're putting themselves in life's debt because of it.
Yeah.
The truth is, everything revolves around money. Like, this is a money issue.
It always is.
Well, that's a human issue with our own selection of belongings, but That's like theology.
That's yeah, it's greed, and it's see, that's a view I have with the far like Republican ideal is, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. I believe that it's like if you're Democratic, you think, hey, I'll put my money and whatever towards helping other people, or it's I want my money for myself. And I don't think either of them is necessarily wrong. I just think it's two different ideals. And it's important to try to find a middle ground there, because if we don't, we're going to have some really upset people like we do.
Yeah.
You can't make everyone happy, but
Yeah.
I wish there was a middle ground, like you said.
I feel like that's the issue with the healthcare system is you can't find a middle ground for everyone, because even the people who are complaining now, if you were to satisfy them, there's going to be people born later that aren't going to be happy with what they have, and they're going to want more, and it's just going to keep going.
Yeah, you have to find the you have to find the way that works that satisfies the most amount of people while keeping the ones unsatisfied not arguing about it like seriously.
Yeah.
It's politics because everything's politics these days.
Yeah, there's a weird thing with benefits too, is that if you're on the lower side of middle class, sometimes it's better to just be poor, because you'll end up having benefits that are so much greater than that is if you were middle class. And a problem with that is that if you look at middle class now and where that falls compared to like decades ago, middle class now is considered so much lower. If you're middle class and you're living check to check, paycheck to paycheck, that shouldn't be considered middle class, in my opinion. People like that, where it's like, you don't qualify for these healthcare benefits, but you don't have the money to afford your own. There's a problem there.
Every
Yeah.
wage should be livable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that point, I'd like to end the formal discussion. I'd like to thank you both for having. I'd like to not just you two. I'd like to thank everyone here for having such great ideas, and we had a great discussion today. But now let's move on to something a little bit more fun, shall we?
I'm so excited for this game, Marcos.
Thank you. Coming up with it right before we came onto the show. Oh, this is a game called Cabinet Battle. Pretty nice title, isn't it? In this game, we take important and prominent political figures and think about what would happen if they were put into the ring. Because we're teenagers. What do you expect? And this week, we'll be discussing several different political figures. Our first one is probably the two most prominent: Trump versus Biden. Who would win?
Okay. So
I have a good point here. I'll wait.
okay. So okay, Trump versus Biden, right?
Yes.
Trump in person is 6'3", borderline 6'4". Joe Biden, on the other hand, is 6 foot. Trump weighs a considerable amount more than Joe Biden.
Bro, just say he's fat.
He is. Yes.
He literally, Marcos, cut this out. Man,
Okay. So
Because now I have to cut it out.
I'm not gonna lie. According to this article called statesman.com fact check, is Donald Trump, quote, morbidly obese?
probably, honestly.
That a lot of people seem to care about his weight and height, because I have so many articles on that. But anyways, he weighs more, he's bigger.
I'd also like to bring up the fact that he had an actual career in fighting beforehand, even though I'm sure like it wasn't as glorious as he'll probably make it sound. It's still learning how to fight is learning how to fight.
Yeah.
It's not like Biden grew up on the streets.
And 1 second. How old is Biden? Does anybody know his exact age? I know he's old, but I'm not sure how old.
Google search says 77 years old.
Holy crap.
Okay, Thanos, did you say you had a point or for
You know what? To be honest, Isaac touched on it, but he touched on it in the opposite way. I think Trump, he is obese, and I think that is a big, no pun intended, dead weight.
Yeah, because when you're fat, your reactions are just slower. Like, okay, I'm noticeably bigger than Thanos. Like, I'm not fat, but I'm noticeably bigger. And Thanos is a skinny boy. So when me and Thanos are racing, Thanos is winning no matter how in shape I am.
then again, it's Thanos.
True. But when
Okay.
I'm talking about two 70-year-olds, like, I'd have to put, as much as I hate the man, I'd have to put my money on Trump.
I would too.
You know, even though I do think Biden would be swifter on his feet, they're both old.
Really old.
I don't think he can be very swift either way.
I don't think it
At
makes
the end of the day,
He's gonna pull something.
that however many whatever obese weight that Trump's got behind that fist is gonna one and done Biden.
And based on Trump's tax returns, we just know he's a cheater, and Biden is a clean fighter. So
Okay, but you know what? If we look at Democratic Party gun control, right?
yeah,
So you know they're not duking it out with guns. Who's to say Biden does not have fighting experience?
Okay,
Something to consider.
continuing because we got to get on before our time runs out for one
Oh,
of our guests.
Trump wins.
Trump wins. Yes, I believe we all.
You know what? Trump wins hands down.
Okay, everyone, our next contestant, and most likely our last, because I'm not going through that last one, is Bernie Sanders versus TJ Cox.
TJ Cox. Without a question. Without a question. Have you seen
You know
him?
what?
I've never seen him before.
I
I've like
do like-
heard him speak.
Look at TJ
I've seen him on all those recent commercials that have been coming up where it's like, TJ Cox does not like to follow the rules.
Look at TJ Cox. Look at
Yes, the one. It always comes up on YouTube.
Yeah,
I just looked up TJ Cox and,
And
got a porn
we've heard a
website.
lot about Biden's health, or not Biden, or freaking Bernie's health lately.
Bernie's really old. He's in his 80s.
Yeah, he's withering to say to say the least. He's dying.
I would be worried he would die before the fight.
You know what? I was gonna say that.
Wait,
I'd
how
be worried
old-
that the referee would say on your feet and he would fall.
I don't really think there's an argument here. I think TJ.
Bernie's- But let's see how tall TJ Cox is.
Bernie is a king, though. Let's agree on that.
You know what? He might be able to beat him with his words.
Yeah,
He might-
maybe that's a
Perhaps they get in the ring
right now.
and Bernie just says, think about this. They get in the ring, the bell rings, and Bernie says, son, let me tell you something, right? And let's say he just delivers some beautiful speech. Do you really think TJ Cox is gonna fight that? What's that gonna look like on his record?
Well,
He might just throw the fight. He might just throw the fight.
Well,
Well,
according to YouTube statistics, his record is already pretty shady. So I think I'm gonna put my money on TJ Cox.
TJ Cox is only 5'10". Apparently, according to the ads I see on TV all the time, he avoids his taxes constantly. So he's probably going to bring brass knuckles. And I'm just going to say it. Bernie's going down in one punch.
You know what? As a short king myself, 5'10", that'll take him. I hate to put my money against the homeboy. You know, I feel the burn all day, but TJ Cox got that in the bag.
Can we just look at pictures of this man, TJ Cox? He's a unit.
I'll make sure to include some. Here they go. They should be showing right at this moment.
Yeah,
I can't deny it. He's a stallion.
exactly. The only
And
person.
on-
Stallion means tall and fine.
And on that note, I think this should come to be the close of our show. Isaac, Thanos, thank you guys for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you here, and we're glad you guys could show up.
This was
It's
so
been
fun.
a pleasure being here.
Mm-hmm. And with that, I'd like to thank all of our guests for coming and watching us discuss such topics. This has been the Grey Podcast, and we'll see you next week.